Have you ever reached out for simple feedback and received more than you bargained for in their response? I'm not talking politics. I'm talking public enemy number one in the bourbon community. Stay tuned. Welcome to the third day of whiskey on the Cynple Whiskey Show. I'm Cyncere, and tonight we have a bourbon that I bought solely so I could rub the bottle and hopefully get my 3 wishes granted. Willett Pot Still Reserve. Along for the ride and in the passenger seat catching strays, one that's apparently a tongue twister for me. Rowan's Creek. Yes, if I don't say it slow, it does not come out pretty. Rowan's Creek. Rowan's Creek. Before we get into my 3 wishes, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on your notifications to stay up to date on all things Cynple whiskey. Let's get started. On the third day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 3 Willett Burbs, 2 rice to love, and a mash bill the same as Pappy's. That's right, Willett Pot Still Reserve. Known solely for the bottle that it comes in and not so much for the juice inside. I was able to meet quite a few nice folks in line waiting to receive this bottle, as this was released as a special release event by the Virginia ABC. I know in most states neither of these are allocated. You can even find the 50 milliliter minis of some of them. Not the case here in Virginia, so before you tell me in the comments it's not allocated where you are, I don't care. When I arrived to the store, this was probably one of the shortest lines I had seen. I arrived maybe 30 minutes before opening. Most of the time when there's like a statewide drop, I will show up 2 to 3 hours early if I know that they're gonna have something that I want. But this was one of those that I wasn't quite sure how many people were gonna turn out. And luckily my instincts were right. It wasn't that many. I was like 6th in line, getting there with 30 minutes to spare, as opposed to having to bring a camping chair and set up shop for a couple of hours in the cold. When I looked at the list of what was available, I was actually in line for a Willett 4-year rye, but I misread the announcement and I was at a store that did not happen to get that bottle, even though in my mind I was 100% sure that they had 6 coming. So I ended up with this bourbon-filled I Dream of Jeannie bottle instead. On my way back home, I picked up Rowan's Creek and Kentucky Vintage at a couple of other stores. I was excited to see what the hype was and see if it lived up to the hatred in terms of just how quote-unquote bad the juice is. I decided to post all 3 of my bottles in a bourbon group that I'm a member of, just to kind of get a feel for what everybody in that community thought about them. Did they love them? Did they hate them? When I got the feedback, I wasn't surprised at how many people wrote these off as terrible bottles. A lot of the feedback I received was also about how Virginia shouldn't have these as allocated bottles. You could go right up to Maryland and get these any given day. You can get the 50 milliliter bottles. What I was surprised with was the amount of people that went above and beyond to just proceed to let us know just how stupid we were for waiting in line for Willett. Like, there was a lot of memes and jokes and things like that. And my thoughts are, like, if you love whiskey, if you love to try new whiskeys, go out and buy things. How else are you going to try new whiskeys if you never go out and buy them? If you solely went online and listened to what everybody said, you'd never have a need to taste any new bourbons. Chances are your palate is different. Chances are you may love this. Chances are you may hate it. But at the end of the day, you don't know till you try it. And instead of riding up to Maryland to buy a 50 milliliter of it, I can go up the street at 9 in the morning, get a whole bottle of it and call it a day. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, at least when I have people over and they've never experienced it, I'll be able to share it with them as well. So that's where my thought process is on the whiskey community, the whiskey experience, as well as the overall journey. All right, enough of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Let's get to sipping. Willett Pot Still Reserve Batch 23C24. This was once listed as a single barrel product. Now it's listed as a small batch bourbon. Willett has 6 mash bills that they use, and this uses one of those 6. I don't believe it's disclosed as to exactly which mash bill it uses. Some consider this the baby brother to Willett 8-year wheated bourbon, which appears to be doing pretty well for the reviews I've seen on it. As I mentioned a moment ago, I hadn't had any Willett expressions prior to these, so looking forward to diving into a second sip to get my thoughts on them. Rowan's Creek Batch 23-50. Coming in at 100.1 proof. I paid about $60 for this bottle. Price fluctuates online, at least for what brief research I did on it. This is a blend of various sourced bourbons. It also uses one of the 6 mash bills I mentioned a moment ago. Let's get to sipping. So just like last video, I'm gonna get the nose, gonna taste them both, then decide whether or not they make the naughty or nice ones. So oddly enough, this has such a sweet smell to it, like caramel on the nose, maybe even some sort of a baked good. All right, so the Rowans. So to go from such a sweet smell of this to this gives me almost that spearminty rye scent. This isn't listed as a high rye, but it almost has a, reminds me of the football field I played on that was natural grass, fresh grass clippings. And I don't mean that as a negative. I'm just saying it gives me like a grassier, maybe an earthier nose. And just like with rye, I get some sort of a spice. Could be cinnamon, some sort of a baking spice, but that minty grassy scent is the main nose I get on this. All right, so let's go ahead and give them a taste. So for the Willett, it tastes kind of young. I think it needs a little bit more time in the barrel. It's not off-putting. It still gets some of that sweetness, like a shortbread even. It's very viscous on the mouthfeel. A little small hint of cinnamon comes through. The caramel still, I get some of that caramel note that I got initially on the nose. But not bad. Let's try the Rowan's Creek. The spearminty note makes me laugh when I smell it just because of how different the two of these are. And this is the higher of the proof. I think this is 100.1 proof. It's almost like, reminds me of like New Riff single barrel kinda. Definitely not quite what I expected based off of the nose. Sweeter flavors, a little bit of that peppery bite that you get from a higher rye. Again, it's not advertised as a rye, but I get a lot of what I get on rye. A little bit of honey and a little bit of orange peel as well. All right, now that I've had time to add the water, let's go back in for a second sip. First with the Willett. Oh yes, on the nose, that caramel smell is a lot sweeter than what it was prior to water drops. This has a really good nose on it, man. So from a taste perspective, I still get a lot of the same notes. Surprisingly, unlike the review I did the other day, this doesn't tamp down the caramel. It actually brings it out a little bit more. The finish on this one was kind of lacking to start with, so the finish now is even more lacking. If there was one wish for this genie bottle, it'd be to give a stronger finish. But I think if they aged it a little bit longer, that would take care of itself. It does have that younger taste to it, but really, it's not bad. Let's try the Rowans with the water. Oh man, so on the nose on this, it almost lightens that mint to where it gives it that Wrigley's Gum spearmint smell to it. Whereas before it was a stronger mint candy, but now it's more of a Wrigley's Gum. It's probably after you've chewed it a little bit too. It's nowhere near as strong, but it is a lot sweeter mint than what strong peppermint usually gives. Let's give it another sip. So the water tamped down I don't know what I was getting that made me think of New Riff on the first one. I don't get that with the water on this now. As for the taste, that honey is it's very present in the second sip with the water. All right, so for the Cynple list, we're gonna start with Willett. MSRP on this one is $50. I believe I paid closer to 62. Is it worth 62? There are quite a few very caramel heavy, very more oaky, better in terms of age bourbons out there for anywhere from 30 to 40 bucks. So from that perspective, not so much. I don't think that it's anywhere near as bad as what I've seen in some of the other reviews and what people have posted about it. And maybe over time, for all I know, they could have switched to batch, because a lot of the reviews were 4 and 5 years old. Who knows what they've done since 4 or 5 years ago. I'd love to get a hold of one of those Willett bottles from back then and see just how well I like it, or if it's as terrible as everyone has made out in the world that may have tried it 5 years ago and never went back to it. I know that I did the same thing with George Dickel 15. I was just in the store the other day and did see that they had some on the shelf again. Maybe I'll pick up another bottle as long as the proof is different than what mine is and the batch is different, and then see if maybe I got a bad batch. You never know, and that's one of the pros to the whole game of whiskey. Things can be aged differently. It can be different seasons that extracted more flavors, and so on and so on. Secondary pricing on this, $75 to $100. No, I would not pay that for this. I love the look of the bottle. Realistically, I'll probably keep one in my collection solely for the look of the bottle. I won't say solely, primarily for the look of the bottle. Proof, 94 proof, slightly higher than your Buffalo Trace, but I do think Buffalo Trace is more rounded out in terms of its flavor. Distillery, Willett Distillery. All right, for the second one, Rowan's Creek. MSRP on this, a little tricky because they advertise in Virginia that we typically pay MSRP, and if you know different or how they do it, leave me a note down in the comments. But I've been told that they try to keep everything at MSRP when they sell it here in Virginia. But I've seen some of these Rowan's Creek online for $39.99, and I know I paid like $52 at Virginia ABC for their event. So leave me a comment below and let me know if you have a better explanation as to why I found it lower online at multiple places outside of Virginia. Secondary pricing, $60 to $80. I paid $52, so I was still below what I seen in terms of secondary pricing. Proof, 100.1 proof. It doesn't drink really high in terms of proof. 100 proof is right around that sweet spot for mixing in a cocktail. Given I get some of those new riff vibes, I get some of that rye spice vibes, I would love to even try this in a cocktail just to see if some of those unique flavors come through in a cocktail as opposed to just drinking this one neat. And distillery, just like this one, Willett Distillery. Final thoughts on both bottles. I think that for perceived MSRP, these are $30 to $40 bottles. The packaging on this would make this more of a $40 to $45 bottle. Realistically, I wouldn't pay more than $40 for either of these. This is not a bad bottle. This is not a bad bottle. I really do think that they have potential, but I do have others that I've tasted that I feel are, I wouldn't even say leaps and bounds, but I think more bang for your buck in terms of paying $60 for this and $50 some for this. I'd rather pay $55 for Old Forester 1920. So if you have a chance to taste these out in the wild, obviously do so. Go out there and find out for yourself whether or not you like some of these bourbons. I try so many different bourbons, and the initial tasting on them, some of them I feel like just aren't that great. And then as I go back to them time and time again, they get better over time. Your palate evolves over time. So keep that in mind. For me, I will continue to drink down both of these with people that I enjoy sharing pours with, that are possibly curious about Willett, because the majority of the guys that I have down here have been in bourbon way longer than I have. They just don't like to get on camera like I do. So it is what it is. If you like this video and any of the rest in the series, don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on your notifications to stay up to date on all things Cynple whiskey. I'll leave you with this. As you continue to gain more knowledge on this journey, please share that knowledge, but remember, it's just as important as to how you share that knowledge. So how you respond to any of the questions that may come your way could put somebody off of whiskey forever. Until next time, keep it simple. Cheers.